Gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dirk Urban. He is the CEO of Hyperloop Transportation Technologies, which he'll call HTT. He's also the founder and CEO of Jumpstarter, Inc. Founded in 2013, HTT designs and builds the most highly profitable, fastest, safest, and environmentally friendly transportation system for passengers and goods. HTT uses Jumpstarter, Inc.'s crowdfunding and crowd collaboration platform Jumpstart Fund, and is thus able to leverage technology and an 800-plus team of global experts to bring disruptive innovation to the traditional transportation industry. Hyperloop first gained public interest when entrepreneur Elon Musk published a white paper describing a futuristic mode of transport that would take people from Los Angeles to San Francisco in about 30 minutes. Musk handed the concept to the public. Hyperloop Transportation Technologies rose to the challenge. Please join me in welcoming Dirk. You can now rise to the challenge. Welcoming Dirk to the stage.
All right, as you just heard, my name is Dirk Urban, and I'm the CEO and founder of Hyperloop Transportation Technologies. And well, we say we transform transportation at the speed of sound. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? So I know that many of you are already familiar with what we do and what the Hyperloop is. For everybody else, we have a little video that shows parts of the beginning and explains a little bit what it actually is. So enjoy.
I have a name for it, which is called the Hyperloop.
Imagine a capsule filled with people, right?
You put this capsule inside the tube.
You create a low-pressure environment inside the tube.
So you have no resistance.
And it's moving very fast from point A to point B.
Capsule, very similar to an airplane that goes in high altitudes, can travel really fast with very little energy.
Is the main trick to it the vacuum and the fact that there's no friction? Is that the main reason why it makes it so fast?
Tesla founder Elon Musk proposed this new technology called Hyperloop, and it's being developed right now in Playa Vista, here in this hangar behind me. Company Hyperloop has teamed up with the students to create this tube technology that's designed to connect cities up to 400 miles apart.
So when Elon published the document, he just drafted a possible way to achieve this. 2 months later, my business partner, Dirk Ahlborn, took this document, published in our website, the Jumpstart Fund, and did a call to action. So, how are we doing this?
We want you all to join the Hyperloop movement.
And we have been overwhelmed of requests from engineers from all over the planet. There were people from, NASA, Tesla, SpaceX, Boeing, MIT.
We want to give our community that's supporting us the possibility to own parts of the company.
So we are creating the biggest crowdsourcing project in the planet.
The company says it already has several potential investors and wants to take Hyperloop to China in the future.
You have to consider that the Hyperloop is not a new idea. Humanity tried to build this system several times in the past.
The race is on. Elon Musk's vision for a high-speed passenger pods known as the Hyperloop is one step closer to becoming reality this morning. One of the known companies competing to capitalize on Musk's proposal, announcing today it has struck a deal with landowners in Central California to build the first full-scale Hyperloop along a 5-mile stretch along I-5.
We designed a system that is not only fast, but it can actually produce more energy than it consumes.
It will change the way we live. It's possible today, it's based on existing technologies, and it's the right time, it's the right moment to finally get something doing like this.
In 30 years' time, will you and I be sitting on our rocking chairs going, well, we talked about it then, and he did it?
All right, so to reiterate, what is a Hyperloop? Imagine a capsule similar to basically an airplane, right, without wings, filled with people or freight, hovering inside a tube and moving really, really fast from one point to the other. Inside this tube, we create a low pressure environment. So basically that means that we have vacuum pumps along the track that takes the air out, so that this capsule can move really fast, just below the speed of sound, so around 760 miles per hour, with very little energy, because it doesn't encounter any resistance. The system is completely green. It uses wind, kinetic energy, through regenerative braking, and depending on the climate, even geothermal, to produce, obviously this depends on the route, ideally more energy than we're using. And this is a very important part, because you see, when we started looking into if this makes even sense, we found out that, well, there's a big problem when it comes to rail projects. There's actually no rail, no metro in the whole world that's profitable. They're all relying heavily on government subsidies. The Hyperloop, because it consumes very little energy, it produces its own energy, and several other factors, has very low operational cost, and therefore can be profitable in a very short time span. All the different feasibility studies that we have done with governments around the world show, in our eye, around 8 to 12 years, and that's something that has never been seen before on a rail project. All right, but why should we care about what they call the fifth mode of transportation? This is why. Maybe not necessarily something you see in Cleveland too often, right? But still, there are many places around the world where it's really, really bad. Los Angeles, where I live, is definitely one of them. Traffic, right? We spend a lot of time in traffic. Time that, as Grace said earlier, we could be productive, right? We could work more if we really wanted to, but probably, you know, time that we would want to spend with the people we care about. Actually, it's so important that based on where we live, we decide where we work. Think about that for a moment. And, well, in Los Angeles, where I live, you even decide who you date, because if she lives on the other side of the city, it's not going to work out. Well, and then we have Beijing on a sunny day. On a bad day, you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And now, you know, by the way, I was just there. It gets actually a little bit better now. But most people of us think that this is a problem that we have in China or in India. But even here in North America, you lose 14 months on average of your life thanks to pollution. Now, of course, transportation is only part of that. But it's important enough that governments around the world are moving over to new regulations to solve these issues and bring transportation over to green alternatives. Well, and then we have the railroad industries. They're literally what we call a dinosaur industry. They haven't really changed much, right? You think about it. Couple of 100 years, basically still the same. There's not a lot of innovation that has gone into the railroads. In fact, these are normal railroad tracks. The distance between those tracks is 4 feet and 8.5 inches. Bunch of transportation experts here. Who knows why? Just yeah, the Roman carriage. So think about that for a moment, that in 2018, we're building new infrastructure based on the butt of 2 horses. And, you know, there's a whole story, and it's not directly like that, but it's still, I think it's a pretty good symbol. It hasn't changed much. And actually, if we would make it larger, and some countries in the world have done that, but we could move more people, more freight, faster, and even safer. So just a little bit of adjustment would help a lot. But, you know, again, innovation in this area is definitely not the easiest. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't make economical sense. So this is an example of the LA Metro. The LA Metro makes 76 cents per passenger, and $2.50 are coming from taxpayer money. Now, of course, you can say this is Los Angeles. You're all using the cars. That's why you're all sitting on the freeway. And it's partially true. But even New York, which is one of the busiest metros in the world, they're losing 82 cents per passenger, and that comes out to $2.2 billion every single year. Germany is subsidizing their rail network with over 22 billion euros, roughly $25 billion every year. And, you know, it only gets worse. So it's like that all around the world. It doesn't make a big difference where you look. So how would our lives change if we had something like the Hyperloop? Well, another problem we're having are airports, right? You guys have how many? Two big ones here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they're overflowing, right? So we're building more and more, and they're fairly close to the city. With something like the Hyperloop, you can actually connect these airports and make them into terminals, right? And now you're within minutes in between those terminals. It becomes one huge airport. You can build them even 100 miles outside of the city and still be there within minutes. We talk about freight. We can get freight from Asia, China, for example, to Europe within hours rather than within weeks. We can enable an on-demand economy, basically. Deliver within 1 hour from one central warehouse in most states, most countries around the world. But most people get excited about living in one place and working in another. Living in Cleveland, working in Chicago, or the other way around, right? Because that really brings together the economies. That enables a completely new mega region. And that changes the way we live. So how are we doing this? So, of course,
the world.
Sorry, go back. So when we started looking into if this was even possible, we looked into the technology. We looked into the financials. And as I mentioned, from a financial point of view, this actually makes a lot of sense. From a technology point of view, we found that the technology already exists. It was out there. We know a lot of the different elements that we need here. We just needed to bring them together. So here's a little video that shows some of the partners and some of the technologies that are already there. And so you get a little bit of a better idea.
The world is at a crossroads, at the brink of a historic breakthrough in mobility. Connectivity is everything, and now we are ready to connect people by a new form of transportation. It's called the Hyperloop, a system that moves people and goods on the ground at and beyond airplane speeds. And since 2013, Hyperloop Transportation Technologies has been at the forefront of making the Hyperloop system a reality. And we're building today. Utilizing a combination of existing and new technologies, including vacuum systems, magnetic levitation, linear motor systems, automation, and renewable energy, our Hyperloop system will be both high-speed and resource efficient, with a safe and comfortable experience for passengers and cargo. Our system is designed for departures every 40 seconds and a maximum speed of 1,200 kilometers per hour. It is capable of moving 164,000 passengers on a single line in one day. Hyperloop TT's technology breakthrough is a next-generation passive magnetic levitation system. It's called InductTrack, and it's revolutionizing transportation. Neodymium magnets in a Hallback array enable passive levitation over an unpowered but conductive track, and as capsules move through the low-pressure environment, they use very little energy en route, thanks to the reduced drag forces. The InductTrack system was tested and validated on a full-scale passive levitation track. Hyperloop TT improved the technology and optimized it for a low-pressure environment through testing in our prototype. Beyond InductTrack, our tech has already yielded 27 patents, with further development taking place in our innovation hubs around the globe. To build this extraordinary system, Hyperloop TT has assembled an expert team of over 800 engineers, creatives, and technologists with unparalleled experience. We're also partnering and co-developing with the best companies in the world: Atkins, Isaiah, Leibold, Carburas, Pacadar, Priestman Good, and Talgo are among the 40 best-in-class partners that are part of the Hyperloop TT core team. All have decades of engineering and manufacturing experience in critical industries like tunnels, tubes, aerospace, aeronautics, vacuum pumps, and pylons. The combined experience of our partners gives us the power to leverage decades of development and save millions in research. That's why our system is already feasible and insurable, according to Munich Re, the world's largest reinsurance company. The original Hyperloop company is about to bring the world closer together than ever before. Hyperloop Transportation Technologies.
So, from a technology point of view, as I mentioned, it's already there. We know how to propel a train. We know how to levitate a train. In fact, maglev technology was invented in the 1930s, and the first maglev train was prototyped in the 70s. We know how to build pylons, we know how to build tubes, we know how to create a vacuum inside a tube. So this is actually a picture of the CERN particle accelerator in Switzerland. And the vacuum inside those tubes is 100,000 times lower than the one that we are using. And the company responsible for it, labeled Vacuum, is actually part of our team. Alternative energy is a pretty safe bet. Today we know in California, for example, that we're able to cover our complete energy cost just with the latest solar technology. But tomorrow, that's going to be even better and, more importantly, cheaper. So it's kind of like the silicon chip, right? It's getting better and better every single year. But we're doing something else, a little bit different. We built a company in a completely different way. So normally when you hear about a metro or a train, this is where it's happening, behind closed doors, right? You hear they want to build something, and maybe you hear how much it's going to cost, but that's kind of it. Well, something that we call crowdstorming. And crowdstorming really means that we work with the community, with you, right? We ask questions. So we have the unique opportunity to build a transportation system the way you should do in 2018. If there would be no transportation system, how would you build it today? How should it be? Do we need a ticket? And not only do we need a paper ticket, but is a ticket the right way to make money? Because if I can find a better way, if I can find a way where I make more money the more the passenger rides, then a ticket becomes negative, right? And, well, think about it. Think about transportation as the marketing. We're spending billions of dollars to market to people to get them to places. In transportation, they're already there. I'll be tomorrow on a plane for, I think, 7 or 8 hours, and nobody is there trying to entertain me while making money, right? So we can do better. And more importantly, it's all about the passenger. It's all about building a better passenger experience. So it's not about having ads popping up everywhere. No, it's about creating an ecosystem of services, of things that you might have to do at home, but you rather do while you're commuting or while you're traveling, right? Maybe you need to get your nails done, or maybe it's a massage, or maybe it's other kind of services. So, and it's not even us coming up with those, it's about enabling. It's about bringing together and being the platform and enabling companies, young entrepreneurs to come up with new ideas, similar to what they did when the iPhone came out, right, and the App Store. Just giving them access and then all these amazing things without which we today probably couldn't live anymore. And a couple of the ones that we could live well without. So part of that are our virtual windows. We don't have windows inside, right? Because we're inside the tube. So we're using normal screens, and we have cameras, and these cameras see where you're looking. So based on where you're looking, we're moving the image so that you get the idea as you're looking outside of a real window, but it's a virtual one. So you can go through Imagine Terminator Land or Jurassic World or Jumanji. Maybe you're in the subway and it's episodes of Game of Thrones that are happening outside, right? So for you, it's an experience, but for the transportation company, it's actually a way of generating income. And this is just one of the many examples. And here, for example, we're working with Sony on creating the first set of these contents. Maybe showing Spider-Man battling Venom outside while you're traveling. So the passenger always needs to be in the forefront. We need to create a seamless passenger experience. It's crucial. So why are we working like this? Well, you know, the Hyperloop is actually not a new idea. When people hear about the Hyperloop, they think of Elon Musk, but in real, it has been hundreds of years that we have been thinking about traveling inside a tube. There was one attempt, for example, in 1870 in New York. They built a station and a track. They wanted to connect New York to San Francisco underground. And they had these wooden carriages which were moving forward through a pressure difference inside these tubes. It's actually moved people around. If you're questioning, they never made it to San Francisco, but they tried. In the 60s, the US actually had 2 projects financed by the government. And the State Secretary of Transportation said in an interview with Popular Science that tube travel will change the way Americans live and travel in the future. You all know it from Futurama, Walt Disney, James Bond, right? In the 90s, there was a project called Swiss Metro. And Swiss Metro is actually probably the closest one to what we do today. It was underground tunnels with maglev trains, so pretty big, and a low pressure environment. Very expensive. Should have been continued developed, but they stopped. And they stopped because, of course, you know, they were depending on one country. They didn't have the political support. And that's kind of where we realized that we had to do this in a different way. When we were looking into the history, we realized that in order to make this happen, we had to do more than just build a company. We had to build a movement. And that's what it is today. And of course, you're all part of it. And then, of course, in 2013, there was Elon Musk. And when Elon Musk said that he was too busy to pick this up because he was too busy with Tesla and SpaceX, and he wanted someone else to do this, we were there. I was working as part of a non-profit incubator that was funded by NASA, and we were working on a new way of building businesses. Exactly with this concept of bringing people together that have the same passion and make things happen. So we asked for permission, got it onto the platform, and asked our community, should we be working on this? And not only did they say, yes, you should be doing this, but they said, hey, I want to be part of this. So we incorporated the company, got a small team together, and got around 200 applications. 100 engineers were selected, and we started working. Today, we are over 800 people all around the world, in addition to over 50 companies that are part of this, and a very, very large community. We have offices around the world. We're in Los Angeles. We're in Brazil was one of our innovation hubs, the Exo Square. We're in Barcelona, Slovakia. We have our R&D center in France, in Toulouse. We're in the Emirates. And we're moving further. These are some of the partners that are part of our team. Atkins is one of the leading construction engineering firms in the world. And Caburis is a manufacturer for Airbus and Boeing. So they manufacture planes. That's exactly what we need, right? It's the technology that we need in order to build our capsule. Leybold is literally the inventor of the vacuum pump. This is the company that several hundreds of years ago invented the vacuum pump. and many, many more. Munich Re is the largest reinsurance company in the world, and they actually said that they're able to insure our system. And as a very important step in order to bring something to commercialization, of course, insurance and making sure that something is safe is a crucial step. And next week, we'll have actually a big update exactly for that. All right, but when? When are we going to see the Hyperloop? That's normally the question I get, which is already great, because at the beginning, people were saying, this is never going to happen. Now, at least in the US, because there's still some countries that don't believe it, I don't get this question anymore. People are only asking when finally. It's been 5 years, come on. It's still not there. So the good news is it's happening now. It's not something that's going to happen in several decades. But we, over the last 5 years, were pretty busy. So we built and scouted technologies. We integrated them together mostly. We created partnerships, onboarded people, signed agreements with governments around the world. And we actually started building the world's first Hyperloop passenger capsule with our partner Caburis in Spain. So as I mentioned earlier, Caburis, they're building planes for a living. So it's the same kind of vessel. It's pressure proof, so you're safe inside. They're using our technology, our vibranium, which is a smart composite. Vibranium, you know it probably from Black Panther, but it's an homage. We call it that because for us it's the safest material on Earth. It's a composite that has sensors as part of it and can literally detect integrity and pressure. So the capsule is going to be unveiled in a couple of weeks, actually. So it's not that much out anymore. And then it's going to go to Toulouse for integration into our system over there before then going on the first commercial project. But of course, I'm here, I'm telling you, it's also easy. The technology has been around and people are working for stock options. And so, of course, people are asking, why hasn't it happened yet? There's a major issue. There's a big, big problem to overcome. And that is that it doesn't exist yet. So it's not a train and it's not a plane. It's something in between. So you have to create new regulations. You have to create a legal framework, which means you have to work with governments and you have to work with politicians, right? So, and even though I love them, it's sometimes really hard. Especially because they change, right? They're there for 3-4 years. Budgets change. That's a big issue for them as well. So maybe one time you're talking with someone who's your supporter, and the next one, the person that comes after, doesn't know anything and doesn't want to hear about that because he has other problems. So it's important that you work with more than just one. And that's exactly what we have done. We have been actually fairly busy around the world to work with many, many entities and to move this forward. As you heard earlier, in California, we have a project, and California is probably the worst place to do this, because the environmental studies are so difficult. They're so long. And in Slovakia, we worked and are working with the government on a local project. In Abu Dhabi, we have the royal family involved. So Sheikh Falah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the brother of the ruler of the Emirates, is actually our official partner and sponsor. So it can't get better than that. And we've done a complete feasibility study with the DOT. In Korea, South Korea, they decided that they want to build a Hyperloop themselves. And for us, we're a technology company. We license our technology. That's what we do to governments and to transportation companies. We don't plan on building and operating Hyperloops around the world. So we work with that consortium and are licensing them our technology so that they're able to build a Hyperloop. In India, we're doing a feasibility study in Andhra Pradesh with a line that should come right after that. In Brazil, as I mentioned earlier, we have our innovation center. In the Czech Republic, doing a feasibility study between Prague, Brno, and Bratislava. Indonesia, one of the worst places for traffic probably in the world, in Jakarta. We're looking how we can solve those problems over there. In France, Toulouse, we already are building our R&D center with 2 lines. And we're going to be opening it up to our partners and the partner companies so that they can test their technologies there as well. This is not about version number 1. Version number 1 is ready to build, but it's about version 2 to 223. So everything that comes after. There's always better ways. There's always other ways on how you can do this better, cheaper, build faster, right? Not safer, because safe we want to be right from the Ukraine signed a letter of intent for a commercial system. So now we're actually changing steps because now we're moving forward. We're now commercializing the system. So in Ukraine they want to. In Abu Dhabi, we actually already signed and are in the design phase right now for the first commercial Hyperloop system in the world. And just recently, we added China. And I was just in China last week. They believe they're faster than the Arabs. So we'll see who's going to finish it first. And then, of course, we're here in Cleveland. And I know most of you probably have seen this, but I really like this video, so I'm going to play it again.
Dreams come easy. Dreams of time travel, cloning woolly mammoths, and colonizing Pluto. Dreams where we zip across the country in tubes at 700 miles an hour, powered by sunlight and magnets.
5 years ago, it was literally just a dream.
The problem is, when the time comes for all those dreams to get made, the dreamers don't know where to go. To build dreams, you go to cities unafraid of work and people known for making things. Big things like aviation and smaller things like tanks.
The kind of talent that we have at our disposal here is amazing.
I have been in transportation and infrastructure for over 30 years.
Spent 17 years as a scientist and an executive at NASA.
I'm the chairman of the industry-based led Aerospace and Aviation Council.
I attended Yale University and started a career in aerospace at McDonnell Douglas.
Where do you go to make dreams, to build them with metal and glass in your own 2 hands? You go to cities like Cleveland and Chicago, Pittsburgh and Detroit, places that have had dreams and then made them.
We absolutely have the manufacturing. We have the raw materials.
We do it cost effectively. We have a tremendous amount of work ethic and really, really strong resources.
The Midwest is a place that drops a welding mask over its face and gets to work. And that's why we can't wait to build America's first Hyperloop here.
It is quite amazing to see how many partners Hyperloop Transportation Technology already has with academic institutions, with government institutions, with the private sector.
Flying 700 miles an hour through a tube using magnets and sunlight isn't a dream. It's a we're building this and coming to the Midwest to do it thing. We've already got a prototype thing. Millions in funding to survey it thing. First stop, Cleveland to Chicago in under 30 minutes. Connecting the makers of muscle and metal and rock and brick and mortar of this country.
You're going to see Hyperloop transition from what is in the past been perhaps a dream of how fast we can go, how can we send people more quickly to different places. It will eventually become a utility.
This is something people will talk about for generations.
When your grandkids are telling you about this new cool Hyperloop train they got to be on, you can say, I was there. they just started.
So let's get to work. This thing can't wait any longer.
So, I think that, well, see, I love this video. So, of course, being here is great. We have been now working together for quite some time, and I believe that this region in particular and this project that we're working on has probably the best people involved and the best companies involved from any of the projects that we're working on. There is definitely something here in the region when it comes to the capability of to manufacture, the knowledge, the history that's here, and the willingness. And I also think that it will be something that could be very great specifically for this region. So if I would be you, I would literally applaud the people that are sitting here in the front, because those are the people that have made this possible, that are moving this forward. And we're not done yet. It's actually still quite far away in terms of the hurdles, right? We're looking into the routes, then we have to get down, we have to create the regulations. And the US is definitely one of the more complicated countries when it comes to building something like this, or building anything, as you know. So, but we're here. And you need to start at one point, and I think it's looking pretty amazing so far. So, when we started out, just like any projects, there were a lot of naysayers. There might be plenty around still. So even so, we love them, because at the end, the naysayers are pointing the finger to the areas that you need to be careful of, most of the time at least. So that helps you to become better if you listen and you actually look and you see, no, actually I looked at that, that's not an issue, it's not a problem, or yes, I looked at that and we actually have a solution for that. This is kind of the answer that we're giving those people. I believe if someone tells you that it can't be done, it just means that they haven't figured out how to do it. It doesn't mean that you can't figure it out. So, unfortunately not in Cleveland, but the first Hyperloop is probably ready in around 3 years. Cleveland might take 6 or 7 months more. But of course you all are invited. Thank you.